Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. How's everyone doing today? All right. I'm gonna wait for for people to join. I'm just gonna go over some of the breaking news. There's just so much of it that it's quite frankly hard to keep up with. So thank you guys for joining me. We are in strange times, and so it's important for us to know what's going on. Hello, Adeze. Hello, Ireti. Hello, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. Good evening, everyone. Let me introduce myself. My name is Ifeoma Odunlami. I'm an immigration attorney from the Odunlami Law Firm in New Jersey. My law firm serves clients in all 50 states because immigration is federal law, and we do family-based, humanitarian, removal, and the like. So if you have any of this is something you would want us to assist you with, we're really happy to do so because the mission of our firm is to help fellow immigrants get legal status so that they can live here without fear of deportation, without fear of family separation. We believe that families should be together and should be united, and that's what we're doing. You know, we're a law firm of immigrants. A lot of us have been through this process, and we know how difficult it is to go through this process. And I think in this at this time, it's actually even more difficult because of all the anti-immigrant sentiments. So I'm just going to go over some of the breaking news that's been happening the past week, and then I will take some questions. All right. So thank you for joining me. Okay, I think there are questions here. Yeah, let's see. I'm going to put this in such a way I can see the questions. So thank you, Timmy. Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, Alaji. All right, guys, let's get started. So I know what is on everyone's mind is registration. Everyone has heard about the requirement for immigrants to register themselves. This registration requirement went into effect April 11, 2025. It was actually subject to a lawsuit, which we didn't win because the judge allowed the registration to go on. However, the litigation is still going on, so that's not the end of the story. It's just that there's now a requirement to register. In the past, we had told people wait until we get more information. Now there is, we've gotten the information. And so the question is, who needs to register? I think this is the question that is on everybody's mind. And the good news is that a lot of you do not need to register because you've actually registered without realizing it. So basically, if you've had any dealings with the immigration system, you're likely already registered. So that includes legal permanent residents. That includes people that, people who have applied for work permit, people who are in adjustment of status proceedings, people who came through the border were paroled in, people who are before an immigration judge. If you have an I-94, you have an advanced parole, all of you are already registered, okay? So the registration is really looking at people who have had no contact with the immigration system, such as maybe people who applied for DACA, but there was no decision made at the time DACA was enjoined, so they've never had to get biometrics done, or people who came through the border and they were not caught, so they're living here and nobody knows anything about them. However, if there's been any contact with some immigration process, chances are you are already registered. And if you're not sure, it might be helpful to talk to an attorney to figure out what the deal is. So now, to register, you're required to use the form G325R. And I'm going to tell you that form is confusing because there's really no guidance with regards to what the information that you can put in there. they're asking questions that really violate the Fifth Amendment. Asking you whether you've ever been charged with something, whether you've ever committed a crime that you've never been charged with. That actually violates the Fifth Amendment. The right against self-incrimination. So there is, I believe that there's going to be challenges to this registration requirement, but like I said, if you have any questions about whether or not you're required to register, it's best to talk to an attorney. So let's talk about what registration means. Don't be confused about this. This is an enforcement tool for the Trump administration. There are dangers, of course, to registering for people who are out of status. There's a risk of possible detention. There could be potential criminal liability from the information you share on the form. But there are also consequences if you do not register, because if you're filing something like maybe a 601A, which is a waiver that allows you to leave the country, and you didn't register, that might be used against you in any situation where they can make a discretionary decision. So it's important to know, what the law is. It's important to know whether you're required to register, whether you've registered already, and it's important. And if you decide you don't want to register, it's very important for you to know what the consequences could be to you. So of course, like I said, the registration is an enforcement tool. The Trump administration is really trying to get people to self-deport because they're realizing that it's really difficult to mass deport people. So they want people to leave by themselves. So this helps them find people, okay? And of course, there are people who would rather leave than register. So all of this is, that's what it's about. So let's talk about the parole terminations. So if you guys are aware, the CHNV program, which was a parole programs for Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans, was terminated by the Trump administration, and there was litigation. And now it's, I believe, there's litigation there now, and I believe that the requirements to terminate that for Venezuela has been, if I'm not mistaken, has been put on hold. Let me look at my notes because there's so many lawsuits. It's hard to figure out which one. Okay, so the CHNV program was terminated, and then they were sending termination letters to people, asking them to leave within 7 days. And of course, this was really confusing because some people that came in through these programs have already changed status. Some of them have become U.S. citizens. Some of them are have other pathways, and they're asking them to basically leave within 7 days. Now, some of these parolees, when they came in, like I said, they applied for other pathways. So it's really confusing for you to be a U.S. citizen, and at the same time, you're getting an email telling you to leave because you came in as a parolee. Now, this is important. There is information coming out from DHS that if anybody who is a part of this parole program applies for, has a pending application, they will not adjudicate it. So basically, if you come in here with one of the parole programs, you're married to a U.S. citizen, you get around to filing an application, which should allow you to get your green card. They're saying that they will not make a decision on that. Now, that does not mean that you cannot put in the application. That does not mean that you're not going to get a work permit. They're just not going to adjudicate that. So there's a pause from adjudication. And I believe that also is in litigation. There's a lawsuit. There's a lawsuit for everything, guys. There is a lawsuit. So, so what we're telling people is that if you came here one of those parole programs, it's also a good idea for you to talk to an attorney and see if you can be screened for other pathways, because if your work permit expires under this the parole program, you cannot renew it under that program. So, but you can renew it if you qualify for something else. you can get another work permit if you qualify for something else. So it's really a good idea to talk to an attorney and see what, if anything, you qualify for. I've had people who've been here in the United States for years, like maybe 20 years, talk to lawyers and never realize that they qualified for something such as the T visa, and so, or some of them may already have, maybe they have they had an issue which would have required them to go outside the United States, but now we find that they don't need to because there's a law out there that allow them to adjust their status within the United States. So, like I tell people, knowledge is power, and I'm always so gratified when people tell me that they didn't know something would apply to them, but they had heard me on social media, or maybe heard another attorney on social media, and now they're able to take that pathway, get themselves legal status, and live here in the United States without fear of being separated from their family. That's such a great thing. It's just very heartwarming to know that somebody who had lost all hope was able to, right on time, get the information that they needed to stay in this country. So that's that with the parole. And let's see what else. Let's talk about F1 revocations. I talked about that last week. Basically, this administration is just arbitrarily and aggressively terminating F1 status for international students. A lot of the information, a lot of the reasons that they're given is that the person was involved in some so-called criminal activity, which could be getting a speeding ticket, and it could also be maybe there was any kind of political activity, or some people don't even know why their F1s were terminated. Like there's a lawsuit. There are lawsuits, by attorneys who are suing the government because of the lack of due process in the terminations. So whether you're a citizen or whether you're a non-citizen, due process is available to everyone. It doesn't look like it, but it is. So that's the basis for these lawsuits. So let's see, TPS, temporary protected status, is another thing that we're hearing is on the chopping block. We are hearing that Cameroon and Afghanistan's the TPS status is looking to be terminated. The TPS for Venezuela has been stayed. It was terminated, it has been stayed. The one for Haiti is pending. And we are being told that there's a complete visa shutdown in South Sudan. So this is another group of people that you should be looking to see if you qualify for another pathway, because just in case, it just may, TPS might be terminated. So you want to find a way to, see if there's something that works, that could work out in your favor. So another news that we're hearing is something called the Social Security number dead list. So basically what the administration is doing is they're putting the Social Security number of people who are here legally with, or who at least got their Social Security numbers lawfully, they're putting them in a dead list. So the dead list is the list of people who have died, clearly no longer need their Social Security number. And the reason for doing this is they're trying to basically stifle them and get them to self-deport. They feel that, the administration feels that if they don't have a Social Security number, they're not going to be able to work, they're not going to be able to get a place to rent, they may not be able to open a bank account, and basically life will be so difficult for them that they will self-deport. And so that's the Social Security number dead list. Now, let's talk about the IRS agreement with the Trump administration. There's actually some good news with this. So we're finding out that the IRS is not just handing over, doing a broad handover of all IT numbers. So the Trump administration had requested that the IRS basically give them all the information of immigrants who had filed taxes, requested IT numbers, all of that stuff. IRS is now saying that the agreement, at least that's what we are understanding, is that they will address a case-by-case request. So they're not going to hand over every single name to the department, to Department of Homeland Security. They will basically just, if they ask for one name, they can give the information on that. So I see it as a kind of a win, because a win is a win. So let's see. Let's look at another question that a lot of people have been asking. This is green card holders who are traveling, who want to travel to the who want to travel outside the United States. So of course, everyone is anxious because we're getting all this news about green card holders and maybe non-citizens who have traveled with proper legal documents and who are encountering difficulties at the borders. Some of them are not allowed to come in if they're non-citizens or they have non-immigrant visas. Some green card holders are being put in secondary inspection. They're, having a really hard time. So of course, that has caused a lot of panic amongst green card holders, amongst people who want to leave the United States. So I just want to talk about that for a little bit. The truth of the matter is, there are people who are traveling and coming back, a lot of them, and they have no issues, but we only get to hear about those that have problems. So I think whether or not to travel really depends on your risk tolerance. But there's some guidelines that you can think about. First of all, I'm going to say that if you don't have if you're not a green card holder and you have a non-immigrant visa, and maybe you're traveling on an F1 or traveling on advanced parole, you may really want to think about this carefully, because there's really no guarantees, because this administration is playing by rules that nobody understands. So it's really hard for us as attorneys to assure you that, that it's okay to travel. And we've never really done that. In my office, we've always told people, even if you travel with advanced parole, CBP has the right to refuse you entry, for one reason or the other. So let's talk about green card holders. Specifically, green card holders, if you have a 10-year green card, you must be allowed into the United States, right? You must. However, if at the border, they find that you're inadmissible based on maybe you committed a crime, or maybe you stayed outside the country for more than 6 months, or there's something that they saw when they looked through your phones, your iPads, your computer, that made you inadmissible, they can refer you to immigration court, where you go and have to defend your right to keep your green card, right? But they cannot stop you from coming in. So for those who are saying, do I travel or do I not? You have to decide. And I recommend that you talk to a lawyer before you make this decision, because if you've committed any crime, regardless of whatever the infraction is, you might want to think about it again, about traveling. Another thing is, there's something called a Form I-407 that we're hearing that CBP is, I guess, for want of a better word, trying to persuade green card holders to sign. An I-407 basically is a form that allows you to abandon your green card. And I'm not sure how anybody can be coerced into abandoning their green card. So I'm going to assume that maybe they're telling you something that either makes you think that it wouldn't be a problem, or maybe you're just scared. But the thing is this: if you're a green card holder, you should never, ever abandon your green card unless you really don't want it. Nobody should coerce you into abandoning your green card. They will have to let you in, and then you get a chance to go before the immigration judge if they put you in immigration proceedings, and defend your card, which is so much better than signing that form and not being allowed to come in. Because if you sign that form, make no mistake about it, you do not have a green card anymore. Now, if you're a conditional green card holder, which means you have a 2-year green card holder on account of being married to a U.S. citizen, and the marriage was less than 2 years when your green card was approved. If your I-751 was denied while you were outside the country, and your I-751, your green card status was terminated, they can refuse you entry. So, like I said, a lot of this is your risk tolerance. There's just a lot going on that is muddling the rule of law. So I think I'm a risk-averse person. So I would say unless it's an emergency, maybe you should just wait it out. Let's see what's going on. Let's see what the result of some of these lawsuits are. If you talk to a lawyer and, go if you need to, okay? But just practice good phone hygiene. What does that mean? You want to make sure there's nothing on your phone that you do not want people seeing. You want to be careful that you don't have anything that could be problematic, make you inadmissible. Okay. So let's see. I think that's pretty much it. So I think I feel bad that I have to come every week and just give you a lot of news that makes you more anxious, because that's what the situation that we're living in right now. But I think that it's really important that you understand what's going on, and I want to reassure you guys that as much as this news that you're getting is anxiety provoking, just remember that a lot of people are fighting for your rights. They're fighting for there's a lot of litigation going on, and we're waiting to see how that turns out. Law firms are still in the business of winning cases. We're still winning green cards. We're still helping people. And I believe that we're even better lawyers than ever, because right now we're digging down into the books. We're sharing information with other lawyers. We're really, really thinking and trying to figure out ways that we can assist our clients. So don't feel that it's scary, it's nerve-wracking, but that's how they want you to feel. They want you to feel scared. They want you to feel worried. They want you to self-deport. And talking about self-deportation, I want to push back on some of the information that is coming out from the administration. They're making it seem like if you register and if you leave and you self-deport, of course you can turn around, come back and apply and come back again. That's not true. There are laws that will prevent you from coming back to the United States depending on how long you were out of status in the United States, right? There are bars. If you've been in the United States and you're out of status for less than a year, you're barred from coming in for 3 years. If you've been out of status for more than a year, you're barred from coming in for 10 years. And the truth of the matter is that even after that bar, there's no guarantees that you're going to be allowed to come back in. So if somebody's telling you that you should leave so you can, come back, it's not that easy, and that's not actually accurate. So let me take some questions, and hopefully I'll get questions about real immigration, because I really want to help you guys with your immigration questions and not just give you terrifying news. But I just want you guys to realize that, it's a lot of, shock and awe tactics, designed to just, keep people scared. And the ultimate goal is to get people to self-deport. And so understanding that, you have to just kind of, calm your spirits down. A lot of people who have no legal status may have pathways. The law provides it. Nobody's making up these pathways. It's legal to try to find yourself into a pathway that can give you a green card. That's the law. There's nothing wrong with it. So when I see people, on social media screaming, people should just go get out, I'm like, first of all, they don't even know how their grandparents came in. Some of these people who are criticizing the paroles and all of that. That's how their grandparents came in. But now they turn around and criticize the same system that allowed their parents or grandparents to come in. And secondly, the law allows us to find ways to get people legal status if they are eligible. And that's what lawyers do. We're not aiding and abetting criminals. And immigrants are not criminals. Let's be clear about that. An immigration violation is a civil infraction. It is not a criminal infraction. So all that talk about if you come through the border, or if you come here and overstay, or if you come here, and you're not legal, then you're a criminal. That's not true. The law does not support that, and that's just misinformation. So let's answer some questions, okay? Right. So Peace on Earth says, if you get a 601 waiver for a crime and adjusted to LPR through USCIS, are you safe to travel? Peace on Earth, it depends on that crime. I really would suggest that you talk to a check, because I would never give you legal advice. First of all, this Facebook Live is not legal advice, it's for informational purposes. So if you're concerned about that, you want to talk to a lawyer. And every time I hear a crime, I want to talk to the person, because all crimes are not the same, okay? So Kende says, I came in from Nigeria on February 20th on K1 visa, ma'am. Do I need to register? Well, you came in on the K1, so I don't believe you need to register. You've already, come through the process. So yeah, okay. Judy Sukram. So look up the registration requirement, okay? From what our understanding is, people like you would not need to register. So Peace on Earth says, is it better to renew green card with a waived crime or apply for N400 crime is not aggravated felony? So if you got a green card and you got it and it's been waived, right? Applying for naturalization actually requires you to be a person of good moral character. So there's a look back period when you're applying for naturalization, which typically is 5 years or could be more, as USCIS determines. But when we're preparing a naturalization application, we want to know what the crime was. It doesn't have to be an aggravated felony for it to make it difficult for you to naturalize. So you really, Peace on Earth, you will be served by talking to a lawyer, an attorney. If you need us to assist you, call us at 973-993-1900. Hi, Akos in Connecticut. Hi, James. How are you? Hello, George. You're welcome. You're welcome. Theo P says, can you travel with a stamp 551 while waiting for a removal trial? Theo, no. Oh my goodness. You're in removal and you want to travel. Don't do that. Thanks for the update. You're welcome. John says, is a speeding ticket deportable or a stop at airport for green card holders? John, a speeding ticket does not make you deportable, and it really shouldn't be a problem at the airport for green card holders, okay? But if you're concerned, you should talk to a lawyer. I always say that because sometimes when we ask you guys questions, there's a little more information, but a speeding ticket does not make you deportable. All right? Right. So Jay Singh says, I'm picked up in the H-1B lottery, but my employer refused to file a petition. What are my options? Well, Jay Singh, you can't really force them to file the petition. Maybe you may qualify for something else, talk to an attorney. And talk to an attorney, if you're in legal status, there might be other things for you to, there may be other avenues for you. I hope you're in legal status, okay? Let's see. I'm going to look at questions on Instagram. So Simply Royal says, I want to ask, if you're an international student and your visa is expired, is it safe to travel within the US? Is it safe to travel within the US? Well, your visa may be expired, but you're still under duration of study, right? And you're still, your F1 status is still active, correct? You want to make sure of that, right? because sometimes the visa could expire, but if you're still here and you're still, you're still in school, because typically F1 is DS, duration of stay, and that's fine. You should be able to travel within the United States. I didn't say outside the United States. So Krishal says, if somebody overstayed their H-2B, do they have to register with immigration? So technically, like they said, if you've had any dealings with immigration, which you have because you were on H-2B, you're already registered. Now, I'm sure there's going to be litigation about all of this, so keep your ears peeled, okay? Let's see. So Abdul says, if you're not under a parole program or applied for asylum, did the pause affect you from getting a work permit? No, if you're not on the parole program and you applied for asylum, I don't believe it did. No. There is I think there's a pause for asylum though for adjudication, because they say they're working through the system, but I don't believe it affects work permits. Don't quote me on that though, because I haven't paid attention to that. McKay Irishman, hello, how are you? Let's see. Yeah, Mahima Joy says, what about OPT removal? Same thing, they're terminating F1s, and if you're an OPT and they terminate you, it's the same thing. So it's going to be hard to reinstate unless you have another admission to school, which I don't even know if they're going to accept that, because they terminated your OPT. I think, if you might want to join the lawsuits, there are attorneys who are suing on this, and really it depends on, your situation. Make sure you haven't violated your F1 status in any way. And, that might be something you might want to do. Okay, talk to an attorney. So Mike Ayer says, do I have to file my change of status and my marriage application at the same time? That's a really confusing question, because if you have a marriage application, that would be the I-130 adjustment of status, and you don't have to file a change of status if you're getting married to a U.S. citizen. The petition is you only need to file the I-130 adjustment of status petition. What status would you be changing? I mean, that question is a little confusing, but if you're married to a U.S. citizen, or you're married to a green card holder and you're in legal status and can adjust your status, then filing the I-130 and I-485 should be enough. So Miro says, you applied for FOIA, they withheld 13 pages per privacy and personal protected by law. Appeal will help. Try it. Yeah. All right. Mick says, Mick, I want to make sure I remember your question, but you're married to a U.S. citizen. Let your spouse file a petition for you. That would really help you if your F1 was terminated. So I would suggest you do that as soon as possible. So patience is the key from TikTok says, I got an advance parole, but my case has been dismissed years ago by the judge. Should I travel? No. Because that advance parole is not valid anymore if your case was dismissed, okay? So Ingrid says, can a mom with a green card petition who has a son over 21? Okay, I'm not understanding this question, because you're saying, can a mom with green card petition, son over 21, divorce, has removal order, he entered illegally? So what's the question? So Legacy says, can an F1 with approved I-140 travel? Legacy, there's no guarantee. There is no guarantee. So that's, like I said, we're hearing about people who are having trouble at the border. Of course, there are many people who are doing it without any problems. It really goes to your risk tolerance. All right, guys, let's see. I'm going to answer a couple more questions and then let's see. So John says, is owing the IRS tax criminal? No, it's not. Evading taxes could be criminal, but if you owe them money, no. Just make payment plans, okay? And they are typically quite generous with their payment plans. They make it easy for you to pay. So Malik says, my I-485 interview says initial interview. Is it a problem? Interview after 10 years of marriage and 3 children, is that normal? When they interview you, they just want to get more information. You know, if you're married for 10 years and you have 3 kids, that's awesome. So you can show that it's a bona fide marriage. Now, if you have no inadmissibilities, there's nothing that you've done in the past that would present a problem to you getting a green card, then that's awesome, okay? USCIS requesting an interview is part of the process. It doesn't matter whether you've been married 100 years. It really is, I mean, these days, there's no interviews are being scheduled. During Biden, they were waiving interviews. That's not the case anymore. And even if this happened during Biden, they still have a right to ask for an interview if they want to, you know, but doesn't mean that you're not approvable for a green card, okay? So Lillian says, I called, but no one picked up, and I went online to book an appointment with you, but the date wasn't available for this month. Oh, Lillian, I'm sorry to hear that, but call the office during office hours, because I think at this point, everyone has gone. So call 973-993-1900. Or you can send an email to support, SUPPORT, at odunlamilaw.com. So typically they can squeeze you in when there's a cancellation or something like that. So try again. I'd love to talk to you. So Shonath says, if someone goes up and marries their citizen partner, should that person come back and wait for papers, or should the person stay there and do the filing there? So Shonath, it depends. If you're already here, it will be faster here, but USCIS wants to make sure that you didn't come into the United States with intention to stay, because then you'll be violating the terms of the visa you got. So if you came in here and changed your mind after you came in here and decided to stay and file your papers, you know, that's fine. That happens. If you want to, you know, the person to file for you and you're abroad, that can happen as well. Which one moves faster? Of course, if you're here, it moves faster. However, remember that you want to be careful about violating the terms of the visa that brought you here. And number 2, if your spouse files for you while you're here, it's going to take a really long time before you can leave the country, because you cannot leave the country until you have an advanced parole. That's a travel document that allows you to travel. And sometimes that takes a really, really, really long time. All right. So McKay Irishman says, what's your schedule for live streaming? You know, McKay, I've been trying to get a schedule forever, and it's just hard because a lot of times I'm working. So when I get a minute, you know, in between all the work I'm doing, and, you know, I try and schedule, I do my live. So unfortunately for right now, I don't have a schedule, but I'm working on it. Okay. So thank you guys for joining me. I'm going to head out now, but hang in there, everyone, okay? And we're all fighting to help immigrants, because immigrants make America greater, all right? Don't let anybody else tell you any different. Take care. Bye-bye.